Hi, everybody. If you're unfamiliar with me, my name is Richard T. Scott. I am an artist. I mean, you can see some of my paintings in the background. This one's in progress. That one's finished up there. Um, and I'm also a fine arts coach, which is a kind of professor at SCAD here in Savannah. What I'm going to say has no affiliation with SCAD whatsoever. This has to do with just my own personal thoughts. And but first, I want to apologize a little bit for the sensational nature of the title of this video. Um, I, unfortunately, as you have to have really catchy titles to get people's attention these days, and there is so much out there about AI, especially in the year 2025, that it's really hard to cut through all of the noise and all of the promotion, all of the advertisement. There's a lot of buzz about the potential for AI doing this and solving cancer and all of these things. And I do want to preface this. I'm going to take a really critical view about AI because I feel like that's actually not being done in a concise manner in our larger public discourse. And I think it absolutely needs to be, because if AI has as great of an effect on our society as Sam Altman and a lot of these tech gurus are saying it'll have profound impacts, and many of them will be unintended. I mean, that's just how all technology works. So I think we have to have a real serious conversation about this. But I want to preface this by saying, yes, there are certainly already some really incredible applications for AI in the medical field and in science, which we absolutely should go forward in exploring. But I think that we really have to think about how we're employing AI in the rest of our society and in our daily lives. And in many ways, I feel like it's kind of being forced down upon us by these large corporate investments and all of this advertisement and a lot of pressure to adopt it. But at the same time, we don't have to adopt it. We don't have to give them our data. We don't have to go along with it. And so this is an option for all of us. And if we all collectively agree on this, then it's not going to work. So why am I so critical of AI? Why am I looking at this from more of a skeptical point of view? Well, so the way I look at it is that there are two primary, most likely outcomes here. Either the promise of AI is as great as they suggest, and we're going to have artificial general intelligence, AGI, within 5 years or 10 years. And that's going to essentially produce an intelligence that is superior to humans. And if it's general intelligence, it's going to be in almost every capacity. Now, think about this. It's not just going to be an artificial intelligence that exists on your computer. They're going to be putting this into robots. I mean, they're already talking about this. This is not, and I say they, as in the leaders of these tech companies, Elon Musk and Sam Altman, two major ones. They're already talking about this in a serious manner. This is not sci-fi speculation. There are, I'm sure you've seen videos. There are already robots that are highly capable of doing many different functions. So you put. I'm not talking about this crazy Terminator scenario. I'm talking about even if AI, in the best case scenario, serves human interests, it's going to replace all of our jobs. Let that sink in for a moment. It will replace all of our jobs, or the majority of the jobs. And I'm talking about even before they integrate them into robots, it will replace all the jobs that can be done remotely. I mean, you've seen Sora, you've seen these video production capabilities. If you match that with an artificial general intelligence, I'm an art professor. If they mine all of the videos of art professors, people teaching art on YouTube and on Vimeo and many other applications, why do they need us anymore? They can synthesize all of that and have a video teacher that can interact with the student. And why wouldn't universities or schools employ these? The cost would be much cheaper. We'll talk a little bit more about that because it's a bit, that's a different question. And I feel like actually right now, the cost benefit analysis doesn't work out. But we're just talking about the kind of like best case scenario that they're selling us. We're going to have revolutions in science and tech and medicine and all of this, but we're also all going to lose our jobs. So what are we going? It's not just what are we going to do with our time. Where are we going to get money? We don't currently have a society that redistributes money, and you know. Throughout all of human history, including today, to a lesser degree today, but throughout all of human history, a few elite have used their power to subjugate the masses. That has literally been all of history. So the blip, the very short period of time in which we have actually had some semblance of democracy and relative freedom and relative equality in many ways, a middle class in America and Western Europe, that is a very short blip in all of human history. So think about that. You know, human nature, the tendency is to control through authoritarianism and hierarchy. That's just what humans have always done. And so we have to really think about what are the implications here. Are we going to be able to sustain ourselves, have a place to live, eat, you know? What happens when our labor is no longer a bargaining chip? When we are obsolete, those who have the capital and who own artificial intelligence will have a vast, vast amount of power. And here I'm talking about their best case scenario that they're saying. They're saying, well, we'll have leisure time and we can all just go make art and like have picnics in the park. I mean, that sounds great. But on what money? You know, do you really trust them to just give us money? They're going to say, well, what are you doing for it? You don't deserve it. Well, you mined all of our data. You stole it from us. This wouldn't exist without us. The entire infrastructure of society was created on the backs of working people. You know, roads and hospitals and the police and fire departments. I don't need to go into all of that. All of this is made possible. Everything is made possible by the working people, right? And then capital comes along and says, well, you're not doing anything to deserve, you know, welfare or a handout. That sounds like a pretty common argument that we've already heard, right? And it has been a very effective argument, right? So I'm really critical of even their best case scenario, you know? Sam Altman just says, trust me. I'm sorry. I don't see human nature demonstrating throughout all of history, and including today, I don't see human nature demonstrating a reason for us to just trust them with this complete power. So that's one opportunity, one possibility rather. One possibility is that it works. They have artificial general intelligence, and they have this great power, and we're obsolete. So if we cannot reach artificial general intelligence, right, and things continue as they are, the current trajectory is unsustainable. Keep in mind that OpenAI, for example, the biggest AI company, ChatGPT, that's Sam Altman right there. Microsoft has a 27% interest in OpenAI. It's a private company right now, has not gone public, but they spent hundreds of billions of dollars on building data centers, right? Hundreds of billions of dollars in investment in buying chips and data centers and all of this. And they've made only tens of billions of dollars. Where is this other, this is a huge discrepancy. Like, they've made a tenth or less than their expenditure. This is all tremendous debt. And the pricing that they have, even though they're touting a high adoption rate, especially for ChatGPT, which is true, the pricing is introductory pricing. So this is not sustainable. They're going to either have to charge much, much, much more in order to make an income, to make this feasible, or something is going to have to change dramatically. So the cost is actually much, much greater than we're seeing right now. So that means it's cost ineffective, it's inefficient. currently. It's much cheaper to have humans do things, and we are better at many things. We are already a general intelligence, right? Um, so, so the question is, why would we replace some people who are already cheaper and much more cost effective? Well, it's because they assume they're going to get the artificial general intelligence, right? And artificial general intelligence does have a greater capacity in theory. There are already subdomains like in the sciences where they're training AI scientists who are able to do the amount of work in scientific progress in one day that a human would do in 3 months. That's pretty impressive, right? They had to train the specific parameters, and this took a tremendous amount of money and time and electricity, huge carbon footprint, a lot of water, a lot of resources going into this, but they're capable of doing that, right? So if they can reach an artificial general intelligence, that's applied to every field, roughly, approximately, right? So, but currently its cost is ineffective. So also there are a number of studies, like take for example the cost benefit analysis. MIT recently published a study that said that 95% of the corporations adopting AI have actually seen no reduction in their overhead from employing AI. 95% of the companies. It improves productivity currently at its current rate, right? A little bit for us, you know. I've tried it out myself. I find it's a little bit helpful for a few things here and there. It improves my own efficiency by a little bit. It, you know, a lot of you probably might be thinking right now, well, why is this so scary? It helps my efficiency a little bit, but it absolutely couldn't replace me. I mean, yeah, it couldn't replace me right now either. But we haven't reached AGI, right? And if you think about how far it's come in the last 5 years, you know, the growth is exponential. That's the whole point. You know, they're also developing AI systems that can train more AI systems to develop faster. So we have this exponential technological growth. And that's their theory of the case. That's why they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars into this. And so why would they be going into so much debt to develop this if currently, with the current capacities, companies are not actually seeing a reduction in the bottom line? The promise is that reduction in their bottom line will be labor costs, meaning they will not have humans doing jobs. That is the only way they're going to end up making a lot of money off of this, by replacing people with your jobs, my job, right? That's how they make money. And if you think about the vast discrepancy in how much they're bringing in now and how much they need to be making, that is the solution. Like, that is how they propose and assume that they're going to make that money. So the plan already is to replace all of us. That's not in question. It's obvious. The repercussions of that are debatable, sure, but shouldn't you and shouldn't we have a say in that conversation instead of having this forced down upon us, right? I'd like to go into a couple of other factors that I think are really important here. I know this is going a little bit long, but there are a number of studies also that have been showing that reliance on AI for students and children, it diminishes their cognitive abilities, their critical thinking skills, their senses of their ability to understand logic and to think through logic and to problem solve. Certainly, we've already seen a degradation in linguistic skills, reading and writing skills over time as students are reading less, have shorter attention spans because of social media and smartphone usage. And this is only exacerbated by using ChatGPT for absolutely everything. If you don't know how to actually research something and look at many different sources, if you don't know how to summarize something, right? That's a cognitive thought process. You don't know how to write an email or summarize an email, much less a paper of some kind. we're talking about people whose brains are still developing. Like, I have a master's degree. I'm 45 years old. I've already had a full life of reading, writing, thinking. I've studied philosophy. I've studied the scientific method. Obviously studied painting, history, economics, politics, so many different things. I already have developed my brain's ability before using a smartphone, even, to kind of think critically. But when you're in the developmental stages, those neural connections are not developing if you are not developing them, if you're not using them and employing them. If you don't use a muscle, it grows weaker. Now think about the effects. We're not just talking about one person, like your little brother or your daughter or your nephew, or we're not just talking about one person. We're talking about an entire generation, several generations. We're talking about a society-wide collapse of cognitive abilities. What does that mean? Right? How much is the effect going to happen? We don't know, but should we be experimenting with this? I mean, look at the development in politics over the past decade. That's already because of the degradation of our cognitive abilities. Even people who have already developed their brains, our neurological connections are already developed, our synapses are already developed, and yet by adopting social media, we have lost our ability as a society to determine the difference between fact and fiction, between propaganda and between empiric evidence. And you think about all of the propaganda that can be produced with deep fake videos now. Imagine that, and it's already starting to happen, but imagine that applied to political campaigns. How do we expect anybody to be able to tell the difference between fact and fiction? So we have a system that's degrading our intelligence, coupled with the rise of a superintelligence that's replacing all of our jobs. So we have a population with a degraded intelligence. And the only value for our labor is going to be physical interaction with the world. And eventually, once they put AI into robots, the robots will even be stronger and more efficient than us. What exactly we're just going to be a waste product? These are questions we need to be talking about and thinking about and planning for, So even in the best case scenario, we have a system that degrades our intelligence and centralizes power behind a small handful of tech oligarchs who end up making trillions of dollars. And with the current tax system, they're just going to not pay taxes. And the rest of us are going to what? Not have health insurance, not have food, not have a way to earn money. There are arguments that in other previous revolutions, Industrial Revolution being one example, people just retrained and they went into different industries. They had different skills. But we're talking about times in which, one, the Industrial Revolution and also the computer revolution, right? They happened over the course of decades. People had time to adjust. And yes, in that time period, there were a lot of people who lost their jobs and didn't have the opportunity to retrain. We're talking about a whole generation who just lost their well-being. That happened. It's a whole generation of people, right? You can say that maybe in 100 years, everything's going to be better for everyone. Even if that's true, even if that utopian fantasy is possible, which all utopias are not possible. But even if that is possible, what about our lives from now till then? What about our children's lives? You just sacrifice them? They have no hope, no opportunity? Is that acceptable? Let's just skip over that, the human effect, right? No, we are humans. Let's not skip over the human effect. And I don't think we should be just tacitly ceding all of this power to these tech oligarchs who are not showing with any transparency what they're doing or how it's working. They're just saying, trust us. So anyway, I have a lot more questions. We're almost at 20 minutes now, so I'm going to leave it there. But I just wanted to inspire a conversation here and I'd love to keep this going. So let me know what you think.